So, another RuneFest has come and gone, and as a result we have a lot more information to cover. Although I couldn't attend this year, I did watch the 40-minute old school panel and tried to compress it as much as I could. Along with this, I combine it with info from the weekly Q&A, as well as posts from the old school site. Now, I don't cover every single thing they talk about, but I think I got all the important stuff. Regardless, there's a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get started. First, the panel begins with a quick recap of the updates from last year's RuneFest. They mention all the updates that they announced last year that have been completed. They also talk about updates that they completed that they didn't announce last year. So, although this panel is technically the majority of the updates you'll see in the next year of RuneScape, they're not anywhere close to being all of them. After a few statistics on the player base, Mod Kieran and Mod Archie take over the mic to discuss a few updates, mainly being raids too. They start by saying over 10,000 raids in the Chambers of Xeric are completed every day, so it's clearly pretty popular. They then go on to announce the sequel. It's called the Theater of Blood and will be located in the vampire city of Meyerditch. The lore behind it is that it's a theater where vampires go for entertainment. They watch humans go through a bunch of challenges and see if anyone survives. Anyway, there's a small dock next to the theater that you can get to by taking a boat from Berg to Rot. That means you won't have to get through the maze of a city next to it. So what actually makes this raid different from the last one? Well, quite a bit actually. First off, it's intended for 3 to 5 player teams, and that it's pretty much impossible to leech on. Every player will have an important role to play depending on the room. The raid will be a linear raid and will not be randomly generated at all. This also means that you have no ability to run back a few rooms or go to the bank. What you bring in is what you get to use. Maybe you'll get lucky with a couple drops, but that's about it. Also, there will be no skilling areas within the theater. To add even more to this challenge, there's what Mod Archie describes as a death wiping system. That means if you die, you can't just respawn and run back into the room. You have to sit at the beginning of the room and hope your teammates can complete it. If they all die too, you all go back to the beginning of the room and it wipes all progress made within it. Now, those of you who are raids veterans may think that this still isn't that challenging. Well, Jagex is upping the difficulty even more. They do so by making pretty complex rooms. An example of this is something called Defeat the Keymaster. As you can see here from the slide, it's a long narrow corridor. You have one boss holding a massive key to defeat. After doing so, someone needs to pick up the key and drag it all the way to the end of the room. While doing so, the player is entirely defenseless and can't use any weapons. To add even more difficulty, the key carrier can get tired and will need to swap out with other players. While all this insanity is going on, monsters will be coming at you from the sides with their aggression focused on the player carrying the key. This is really intense if you ask me. So that's it in terms of the actual raid. They then go on to discuss rewards. First, you'll be given small rewards after completing every room, basically to pay for your supplies and your time. They also want to have bigger rewards too, but it'll be up to the community to decide if the proposed ideas enter the game. They're also taking community suggestions and say to post them on places like Reddit. Lastly, for rewards, they also want to introduce these armors created by Mod West. You'll be able to obtain them from the final boss, but they will be very rare. Supposedly they'll be about as good as Barrow's gear in normal play, but in the raid will give you huge benefits, such as possibly being able to drag the key in the Keymaster room faster than before. Along with this, they want to introduce 3 new weapons that would be charged with blood runes. Lastly, for Archie and Kieran's section, they discussed a few smaller updates. Kieran suggests the idea of a new potion base, Vials of Blood. An example of what a potion with blood could do is when you drink the potion, you take damage, but you get a more powerful boost in return. He also suggests a combat potion for both magic and range. Archie then goes on to suggest updates to magic such as chain spells and being able to barrage yourself so you can hit people directly around you. Next, they pass the mic over to Mod Wolf. He spends this block of time discussing changes to skilling, mainly being farming. He starts by saying Mod Ash has already tried to make some improvements to the skill by doing things like adjusting the farming timer. Wolf goes on to say that they want to expand underused patches and add new variety to existing patches. For example, new herbs and seeds. He also says they want to add evil spirit trees that you can use in the wilderness. They also plan on introducing the dragon fruit tree, which will become the highest level fruit tree in the game. Wolf then says they want to add a brand new section of farming, which is livestock. He says you will have a barn in Lumbridge and one somewhere that will be discussed later on. In these barns you'll have 2 pens and a farmer to purchase things from. Animals will grow over time and can be harvested for materials. For example, baby dragons will give you baby dragon scales. Now, on a darker note, Wolf says that when the animals get close to the end of their lifespans, you can pretty much put them down and get different drops. Sad, but I guess that's kinda what happens in real life in a way. On a bit of a happier note though, a farming guild will also be introduced to Zaya. The guild will have tier 60, 70, and 80 content. The guild will include a second pen, tons of new patches like a cactus, a growable and fightable demi-boss, bottomless compost buckets, a Gaia patch, spirit tree patch, and a lot more. If you heard Gaia patch and have no clue what I mean, it's a patch where you can grow things that basically affect all your other patches. For example, all your patches could give you more resources depending on what you grow in your Gaia patch. After this, the mic is passed over to mods Sween and Archie. They discuss something they call PvP rejuvenation. First is a few changes will be coming to Bounty Hunter. Players will have the option to see an NPC to basically get PvP Slayer tasks. For example, defeat your next target wearing a Barrow set and receive a reward. Along with this, you will be able to gain ranks and get loot crates. Supposedly the crates will be not of too much value though. New armor will also be found in the Bounty Hunter shop. It could be anything from tier 40 to tier 70 depending on what the community wants. To obtain the armor though, you would need a rank as high as possibly 1000. After this, they go on to discuss something they call Mage Arena 2. This will add a new best in slot God Cape along with 3 bosses that are in random locations in the wilderness that you have to fight to get it. This is supposed to be very challenging, and if you lose the cape you will have to redo the entire process. They then ask for suggestions on how to fit this into the game's lore. After this, they go on to discuss that they will be adding Revenant caves into Old School as well. It wouldn't be a clone of the original, but rather an improved version. They aren't going to just throw in PvP weapons and armors with this update either. They'll probably talk about what they'll do with that a little bit closer to its release date. Lastly, a teleport scroll will also be added to teleport to the low-level areas of the cave. After this, they discuss a few random smaller wilderness updates. For example, buffing the Chaos Altar. Along with this, an NPC will also be introduced to unknown dragon bones nearby. This is supposedly going to become one of the best methods to train prayer in the game, but will be extremely dangerous. For example, some players could be walking around with over 1,000 noted bones in the wilderness. Not to mention, it will also be located in multi-combat. One final note is they may also add a wilderness impling, but once again, it's up to the community. Mod Ed takes over the mic for the final section of the panel, discussing RuneScape's next Grandmaster quest, Dragon Slayer 2. So, Elvarg is dead, but now you want some answers. Why was Elvarg there? Why did she attack Crandor? Ed says those questions and many more will be answered in this quest. Throughout it, you'll visit some old locations and some new ones as well. This quest will also have the highest requirements ever, but is supposed to give some pretty great rewards. One of those being full access to the Myths Guild, a guild based entirely around questing. The guild will include a Wrath Altar, and you'll also be able to make superior anti-fire potions, which will give you 100% protection from Dragonfire for a short amount of time. The Wrath Altar will also introduce 4 new Surge spells. Along with this, the guild will include things such as 4 magic trees, a bank, 2 runite rocks, Fountain of Myths, lore books, and so much more. You will also be able to get back to the guild if you have the mythical cape. Anyway, enough about the guild, we'll get back to the quest here. In that, you'll be facing off against Vorkath, who is seen in the concept art. Vorkath will drop 2 superior dragon bones on death, along with the possibility to get dragon bolts, a Wrath Talisman, Wrath Runes, Dragon Bone Necklace, and a lot more. Finally, Jagex will also be adding Mithril and Rune Dragons to the game. This will bring the introduction of the Dragon Crossbow, Kite Shield, and most exciting in my opinion, the Dragon Plate Body. To close things out, a new area next to the Myths Guild called Corsair Cove will also be added. It'll include fishing spots, a bank, and even a dungeon. So that's everything. That was a lot of information, so congrats to those of you who made it through the video. This one was probably a little bit longer than I would have liked it to be, and I wish I could have compressed it a little bit more, but there was just way too much in that panel. So anyway, hopefully you liked it, feel free to drop a like if you did, and maybe watch another one of my videos. Anyway, regardless of what you do, I'll see you next time.